me your hands. Not bad, not as bad as mine, but I'm a lot older. I mean, I've had bare knuckle fights for money. I've had unlicensed fights for money. And as you say, in the 70s, late 70s and the 80s, I was the absolute governor on the cobbles. No one in England could beat me. Now, I've retired because I had a bit of trouble a couple of years ago.
You're using this now?
So now I'm using this. I do a lot of poetry. But let me give you a bit of advice. Always keep yourself fit. Always be strong. And train hard. Even though bare knuckle fighting don't normally last more than 2 minutes, always keep yourself fit and strong. And remember, as you fight, you start getting a reputation. And there'll always be mugs out there looking for a rep. Right? So always be on your guard and always keep strong. If you're strong, you'll always be in front of the other guy. Always remember that. Keep strong and fit.
Lenny McLean, often hailed as Britain's hardest man, was renowned in the 1980s for his formidable prowess as a bare-knuckle fighter. Born on April 9, 1949 in Hoxton, London, McLean grew up in an environment known for its toughness and violence. His early years were marked by constant physical confrontations, which were an intrinsic part of life in his rough neighborhood. From a young age, McLean found himself embroiled in fights both to survive and to earn respect among his peers. During his teenage years, McLean had frequent run-ins with the law, often involving street brawls and petty crimes. These formative experiences, although tumultuous, laid the groundwork for his future in bare-knuckle boxing. His reputation as a fierce fighter began to take shape during this period, setting the stage for his emergence as one of Britain's most notorious bare-knuckle boxers. McLean's bare-knuckle fighting career was marked by his immense strength and unyielding toughness. He was so powerful that he once broke his own hands in consecutive fights in Glasgow. His tough upbringing and relentless street battles served as rigorous training, honing the skills that would make him a legendary figure in the world of bare-knuckle boxing. Lenny's reputation was so widespread that even celebrities like Christopher Reeve and Gene Hackman asked for his autograph. He was known for his connections with notorious figures like the Kray twins, and even challenged SS soldiers and Mr. T from the A-Team to fights, though those never happened.
Now, fucking interesting. If you don't want to be counting the fingers you haven't got, or sharing a bed with the Antichrist, I suggest you get those guns.
All the young kids out there, they want to make a name for themselves. I'm retired. But you never know, so I keep well and I'm fast. And I'm always thinking, and I'm always on the ball.
I'm a nice guy, but sometimes I lose all my senses and become nasty. These unsettling words from Lenny McLean provide a glimpse into the complex nature of a man who was both feared and respected. Known as the Governor and the King of the Cobbles, McLean was a towering figure in London's gritty underworld and a dominant force in the brutal realm of bare-knuckle boxing. It is said that he took part in between 2,000 and 3,000 unsanctioned fights. Standing at 6'3" and weighing over 280 pounds during his peak, McLean was an imposing presence, with a physique and demeanor often compared to the Incredible Hulk. He was regarded as the unofficial British heavyweight champion by some of the most feared gangsters and tough men in Britain. McLean's life was one of survival and resilience, molded by a harsh upbringing in Hoxton, East London. Born into a large working-class Irish family on April 9, 1949, Lenny's father, Leonard John McLean Sr., was a British Marine who had served in World War II. After returning from the war, he fell ill with a debilitating condition contracted in India and was given a prognosis of only 2 years to live. To support his family, he turned to petty crime but tragically passed away when Lenny was just 4 years old. This early loss and the subsequent struggles of his family shaped McLean's fierce determination and toughness, which were instrumental in his rise to prominence in the world of bare-knuckle boxing. His legacy remains one of both extraordinary physical prowess and a complex personal life marked by both charm and volatility. After his father's death, Lenny's mother, Rose, remarried a man named Jim Irwin, who was also involved in petty criminal activities. Unfortunately, Irwin was a violent alcoholic who regularly beat Lenny and his siblings. The abuse was so severe that by the age of 10, Lenny had already suffered multiple broken bones, including his legs and ribs, at the hands of Irwin. The domestic violence reached a terrifying peak when Lenny's younger brother, Raymond, became the target of Irwin's brutality, enduring a severe beating with a belt. This incident provoked a furious response from Jimmy Spinks, a local gangster and Lenny's great-uncle. Spinks intervened forcefully, nearly killing Irwin in an altercation where he threatened to cut Irwin's throat if he ever harmed the children again. This brutal and violent environment deeply impacted Lenny, shaping his tough persona and building the resilience that would define his life. Despite the challenges, Lenny McLean rose from these harsh beginnings to become a feared and revered figure, not just as a fighter, but as a man with a complex and compelling story. When Lenny McLean stepped into the world of street fighting, every victory was more than just a personal triumph. It was a way to fight for the young, defenseless boy he once was. The anger and pain from his abusive childhood were unleashed with such fury that it often took a group of men to pull him away from his beaten opponents. This intense ferocity in his fights earned him the nickname 10 Men Len, as it was said it would take 10 men to pull him off an opponent. During his turbulent teenage years, Lenny began associating with local criminals, which led him into a life of petty crime. This path landed him in a young offenders institution for 18 months after he was caught carrying a bayonet at the age of 13, a harsh experience that left a significant mark on his early life. Upon his release, Lenny attempted to hold down a legitimate job, but it ended abruptly when he was fired for assaulting his supervisor. Left with limited options, Lenny took on various odd jobs like window cleaning. By the age of 15, he discovered that his fighting talents could be more than just a way to settle scores. They could be a way to earn a living. The turning point in Lenny's life came almost by chance in his late teens. After his car broke down in the Black Wall Tunnel, he sought a replacement from Kenny Mack, a gypsy used car salesman in Kingsland Road, Hackney. When the new car also failed, Lenny confronted Mack, demanding a refund. Instead of a refund, Mack made an unusual proposition. He offered Lenny a different car if he would fight in one of his unlicensed boxing matches that night. Lenny agreed, and in Mack's yard, he floored his opponent in under a minute, walking away with a hefty $500 prize. This unexpected victory marked the beginning of a new chapter in Lenny's life. Kenny Mack and Lenny McLean struck up a friendship, with Mack often acting as Lenny's manager in numerous subsequent fights. This was the launchpad for McLean's rise as the most notorious bar-knuckle street fighter in Britain, a title he would carry with formidable pride. In the 1970s, when renowned boxing promoter Frank Warren established the National Boxing Council, it opened a new door for Britain's toughest underground fighters to step into the ring legally. Lenny McLean, notorious for his violent reputation and a criminal record that barred him from becoming a licensed boxer, found his place in the world of unlicensed boxing. Although this realm was legal, it wasn't under the purview of the British Boxing Board of Control. In this gray area of the boxing world, Lenny shone brightly, quickly building a fearsome reputation. Among the most memorable chapters in McLean's fighting career was his epic trilogy with his arch-rival, Roy Pretty Boy Shaw. Their rivalry was intense and filled with drama. In their first encounter, Lenny suffered a loss, submitting verbally. He later claimed that his loss was due to tampered gloves that hampered his ability to fight. But the tables turned in their rematch, where Lenny delivered a stunning performance, knocking Shaw out and out of the ring in the first round. Their rivalry reached its climax in their final showdown at the Rainbow Theatre in Finsbury Park, London, in September 1978. In a display of raw power and skill, Lenny sealed their feud with a brutal first-round knockout, marking a definitive end to their storied rivalry. At the peak of his career, Lenny McLean was an imposing figure, standing 6'3", tall and weighing over 280 pounds. He carried his size with confidence, boldly claiming he could take on anyone, anywhere, whether in a formal boxing match or an unlicensed bout with or without gloves. His reputation was so formidable that he even issued challenges to some of the biggest names in boxing, including the legendary Muhammad Ali and the iconic Mr. T. However, these high-profile call-outs never materialized into actual fights. Lenny's fame in the unlicensed boxing world won him both admirers and adversaries. Opponents, their supporters, and punters who lost money on his fights often held grudges against him. His work as a bouncer in pubs and clubs also earned him enemies, especially since being thrown out by Lenny usually came with a beating. His life in this rough world wasn't without its dangers. He suffered 2 separate gunshot wounds and was ambushed and stabbed on 2 different occasions. One particularly dangerous confrontation involved Barry Dalton, a former break-knuckle fighter turned protection racketeer. Dalton and Lenny had a serious falling out, leading to a tense situation where Dalton showed up at McLean's home with a shotgun, making the threat even more frightening as Lenny's children were inside the house at the time. Lenny later claimed that he had a subsequent encounter with Dalton where he punished him for the threat. Dalton, a man with many enemies, met a violent end in 1992 when he was found dead with a bullet in his head. Although Lenny McLean openly declared his innocence in Dalton's murder, rumors circulated that it was the work of East London gangsters. However, Dalton's murder remains officially unsolved, leaving the true story shrouded in speculation and whispers. One of his most memorable fights was against a large, heavily tattooed Scotsman named Jock, who looked like he had a rough past. Jock had "Kill and Death" tattooed on his knuckles and a dotted line on his throat with the words, "Cut here." During the fight, Lenny let Jock hit him several times before delivering a powerful punch to Jock's ear, causing part of it to hang loose and blood to pour out. Jock retaliated with low blows, one of which hit Lenny in a very sensitive area, leaving him in pain for days. After that, the fight became even more brutal. Lenny McLean, known for his ferocity, kicked Jock in the kneecap with such force that he broke his own toe. The pain didn't slow him down. He followed the kick with a devastating punch to Jock's kidneys, causing Jock to collapse to the ground. But Lenny wasn't done. Even after Jock was down, Lenny continued to unleash a barrage of punches, refusing to stop until Jock was no longer moving. Despite Jock lying on the ground, he was still twitching slightly. This only fueled Lenny's rage. He began kicking Jock relentlessly in the face and body, only stopping when others physically dragged him off. The fight left Lenny with both hands broken from the sheer force of his punches. Lenny McLean's life was a constant balancing act between bar-knuckle fighting and working as a bouncer, a job that perfectly suited his tough demeanor. He often traveled around, seeking out new challenges, and Scotland was no exception. On one trip, he visited his cousin, Arthur Thompson, a well-known figure in the Scottish underworld. Lenny was in Scotland not just to visit, but to find a worthy opponent for a fight. To stir up some local interest and provoke potential challengers, a friend of Lenny's planted a story in the Scottish newspapers, claiming that Lenny had insulted the entire nation by calling all Scots porridge-guzzling cowards. When Arthur questioned him about it, Lenny didn't back down, but instead clarified in his typically blunt and provocative manner, saying he hadn't used the word cowards, but instead called them porridge-guzzling cowards. Lenny's bold and aggressive nature, both in and out of the ring, made him a legendary figure in the world of bare-knuckle boxing and in the rough streets he frequented. His reputation was built not just on his fighting skills, but also on his fearless attitude and his ability to face down anyone, no matter how tough the challenge. After the provocative comment, a 6'8" heavyweight champion from the Royal Scots Guards showed up, ready to take on Lenny McLean. The Scotsman was a formidable opponent, standing tall and strong, clearly not one to back down from a challenge. As they prepared to fight and touched fists, Lenny, always looking for an edge, leaned in and whispered a homophobic slur to his opponent. This was typical of Lenny's approach. He used any tactic he could, not just physical but psychological, to get under his opponent's skin and throw them off their game. Lenny knew that in a fight, sometimes words could be just as powerful as punches, and he wasn't afraid to use them. The plan worked perfectly. The massive Scotsman, already riled up by Lenny's insult, started swinging wildly even before the bell rang to start the fight. His anger made him lose control, and that was exactly what Lenny had hoped for. In just over a minute, Lenny took full advantage of the Scotsman's lack of focus and knocked him out cold. The fight was over almost as soon as it began, with Lenny's strategy and quick, powerful punches proving too much for his opponent. In 1992, Lenny McLean, renowned for his role as the head doorman at the Hippodrome nightclub in London's Leicester Square, became embroiled in a high-profile legal case. The incident began when Gary Humphreys, a man suffering from severe mental health issues and reportedly under the influence of drugs, caused significant disruption at the club. Humphreys was seen engaging in erratic behavior, including streaking, urinating on the floor, and harassing female patrons. McLean, known for his formidable presence and experience in handling rowdy situations, admitted to using what he described as a backhander to remove Humphreys from the premises. The situation took a tragic turn when Humphreys was found dead later that night, with injuries including a broken jaw and severe neck trauma. The death led to McLean's arrest and a charge of murder. Lenny McLean consistently maintained his innocence, asserting that the charges were influenced by his past associations with infamous East End gangsters such as the Cray twins. He claimed that the police had a personal vendetta against him, exacerbated by his controversial reputation and connections. As the legal proceedings unfolded, the charge against McLean was reduced from murder to manslaughter. During the trial at the Old Bailey, it was revealed that Humphreys had engaged in a physical altercation with the police after being ejected from the nightclub. Witnesses and evidence indicated that the police used a stranglehold to subdue Humphreys, a maneuver that likely contributed to his neck injuries. Professor Gresham, a prominent pathologist, testified that the neck injuries sustained by Humphreys were consistent with the use of a stranglehold, which played a significant role in his death. Despite this, McLean was held responsible for Humphreys' broken jaw. Consequently, McLean was found guilty of grievous bodily harm and sentenced to 18 months in prison. The case marked a significant and contentious episode in McLean's life, casting a spotlight on his complex and often controversial public persona. His conviction for grievous bodily harm highlighted the challenges he faced, both legally and personally, while his acquittal on the more serious charge of manslaughter underscored the contentious nature of the case and the difficult circumstances surrounding Humphreys' death. Lenny's formidable reputation was never more evident than during an incident at the Barbican Club in London's Smithfield Market. An 18-man stag party, having been drinking heavily, started causing trouble after complaining about the bar's drink prices. Their rude behavior escalated to the point of verbally abusing the barmaid, reducing her to tears. At this point, Lenny decided it was time for them to leave. He approached the rowdy group, his mere presence a warning. However, as they were being escorted out, they started concealing glasses, bottles, and ashtrays in their pockets, preparing for a potential brawl. Sensing the impending chaos, Lenny asked the owner, Dennis McCarthy, if he was going to assist with the situation. Dennis's response was simple: "I'll pay you for this," and he locked the door behind them as they stepped outside. In his autobiography, The Governor, Lenny described the ensuing confrontation. He pulled out a Kosh and confronted the group, claiming to have taken them down like Skittles, slashing through them. By the time the police arrived, Lenny claimed to have incapacitated 9 of the group, leading to arrests and hospital visits for some. Back at the police station, the reality of the situation began to sink in for the stag party. From his cell, Lenny shouted at them, "Look at me! You're not seeing me with drink inside me. I'm like this all the time, a stone-cold, sober, raving lunatic." Initially, Lenny faced the threat of prosecution for grievous bodily harm, given the extent of injuries suffered by some members of the party. However, in a surprising turn of events, he was informed 3 weeks later that the charges would be dropped. The reason given was that it was deemed impractical to use public funds to charge one man with assaulting 18 others. Lenny reflected on this outcome, noting the absurdity of the situation and how it would have appeared in the media. As an unlicensed boxer, McLean's notoriety earned him the title the King of Bouncers in London's club scene. He co-owned the Governor's Pub in East London with Charlie Cray, the Cray twins' elder brother. Lenny also worked as a fixer and bodyguard for various figures, from criminals to celebrities like Mike Reed and Boy George, and even for TV showcasts. His autobiography reveals how his reputation facilitated criminal activities and deterred groups like the IRA and the Mafia. Lenny McLean, best known as a fearsome bare-knuckle fighter, transitioned into the world of acting with a modest start. But his journey soon led him to significant roles that would define his legacy beyond the streets. His acting career began with a small, uncredited role as a ringside spectator in the 1990 drama film The Craze. This appearance, though brief, marked McLean's initial foray into the world of cinema. It was a fitting debut, given his real-life connections to the East End of London, where the infamous Cray twins had also made their name. McLean's next notable role came when he was cast as Eddie Davies, a gangster in ITV's customs drama, The Knock. This role allowed him to draw on his real-life experiences in London's gritty underworld, lending authenticity to his portrayal of a hardened criminal. In 1997, McLean appeared in the sci-fi blockbuster The Fifth Element, directed by Luc Besson. Though his role as a police chief was brief, it was a significant step up from his earlier work, placing him in a high-profile international production alongside stars like Bruce Willis and Gary Oldman. This exposure helped to raise McLean's profile in the acting world, but it was the following year that truly cemented his status as a cinematic presence. In 1998, McLean was cast in Guy Ritchie's Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, a film that would become a cult classic. He portrayed Barry the Baptist, a menacing criminal enforcer whose intimidating presence and ruthless demeanor were unforgettable. This role was a perfect fit for McLean, who brought a level of realism to the character that resonated with audiences and critics alike. The film's success and McLean's performance made Barry the Baptist his most famous and memorable role, securing his place in British cinema history. Beyond the film's critical acclaim, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels showcased McLean's natural ability to convey menace and authority on screen, traits honed over years of real-life confrontations. His portrayal of Barry the Baptist not only captured the essence of a formidable enforcer, but also highlighted his ability to transition from the rough-and-tumble world of bare-knuckle boxing to the polished yet equally gritty world of film. While filming Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, Lenny McLean initially thought he was just battling the flu. However, as his health rapidly declined, he was diagnosed with pleurisy, an inflammation of the tissues surrounding the lungs, causing sharp chest pain. Further medical examinations uncovered a graver situation: lung cancer that had extensively spread to his brain. McLean's struggle came to a tragic end on July 28, 1998, in Bexley, London, only weeks before the film's release. Director Guy Ritchie paid tribute to McLean by dedicating the film to him. Additionally, the movie's billboards were redesigned to feature McLean, a gesture that honored his significant role in the film and his enduring impact. The film garnered worldwide critical acclaim and achieved commercial success, grossing over $28 million at the box office, a significant return on its modest $1.35 million budget. Lenny McLean left behind a loving family, his wife Valerie, whom he married at the age of 20, and their two children, their daughter Kelly, now a mother of two herself, and their son, Jamie. McLean often spoke of his family as his grounding force, the ones who helped him steer clear of a life fully consumed by crime. He credited them for the self-control he exhibited during his fights. Kelly, dealing with bipolar disorder, has speculated that her father might have shared this struggle, shedding light on the personal battles McLean faced. Lenny McLean's autobiography, The Governor, co-written with Peter Gerard, was published in August 1998, just after McLean's passing. Its initial release of 3,000 copies quickly soared in popularity, climbing to the top of the bestsellers lists. In 2001, Gerard released another book on McLean titled The Governor, a Celebration, continuing his legacy. McLean's widow, Valerie, collaborated with Gerard to publish Married to the Governor in 2003 and also contributed a foreword to Anthony Thomas's 2007 book, The Governor, Through the Eyes of Others. The story of McLean was further explored in The Governor Revealed, the untold story of Lenny McLean by Thomas and Lee Wortley, released in October 2017. In July 2018, McLean's daughter Kelly, with ghostwriter Lee Wortley, shared her perspective in the book My Dad, The Governor. As we reflect on Lenny McLean's life, a complex figure emerges from the shadows of London's underworld. McLean was a man of contradictions, embodying both ferocity and warmth. He lived by a simple yet profound code. He responded to kindness with kindness, and to violence with extreme violence. This creed defined his existence, from the gritty streets where he fought with no mercy to the moments of tenderness within the walls of his home. McLean's legacy is etched in the memories of those who knew him and in the tales that continue to be told. His life, marked by battles both physical and personal, reminds us of the manifold aspects of human existence. Lenny McLean's life was a blend of raw power, undeniable charisma, and a complex, often troubled spirit. Rising from a harsh childhood in East London, he became a legendary figure in the world of bare-knuckle boxing and an icon in the gritty underworld of Britain. His reputation as the Governor was built not just on his physical prowess, but also on his larger-than-life persona, a man who was both feared and respected, loved and loathed. Despite his brutal career and the violent environments he thrived in, McLean had a deep connection with his family, who anchored him amidst the chaos. His later years, marked by his unexpected transition into acting, revealed a different side of Lenny. A man capable of captivating audiences, not just with his fists, but with his presence on screen. Lenny McLean's story is one of survival, resilience, and an unyielding spirit that refused to be broken. His legacy endures not only through the tales of his formidable fights and his memorable role in Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, but also through the people who knew him, the stories shared, and the impact he left on British culture. In the end, Lenny McLean was more than just a fighter. He was a symbol of toughness, loyalty, and the indomitable will to overcome life's challenges, no matter how brutal they might be. And that wraps up this intense look at Lenny McLean's brutal encounter with a Glasgow hardman. Known for his ferocity and unyielding spirit, Lenny's life was a testament to survival in one of the toughest environments imaginable. From the streets of East London to the bare-knuckle boxing rings, Lenny's reputation as the Governor was well-earned through countless battles like the one we discussed today. Whether revered or feared, McLean's legacy remains one of the most fascinating and formidable in the annals of British street fighting history.